Do you remember 1977? Some of you don't. Many of you do. There was an event that took place in 1977 that transformed the world. And Mia is nodding because she knows exactly what it is.
I graduated from high school.
Okay, so Mia, I hate to break it to you, but your graduation from high school, while very important, is not the event that I'm talking about. Michelle, did I see you hazarding a guess at what this was?
Well, I thought you were talking about on ice, but I realized that was 80.
You thought I was talking about what?
Miracle on Ice.
Miracle on Ice, you're right, that was 1980 when the U.S. Olympic team beat the Soviets in hockey, and how could that ever happen? No, this is something that eclipses even the Miracle on Ice.
Star Wars.
Yes! Ding, ding, ding. You get a free cup of coffee at coffee hour. Yes, 1977 is when Star Wars was released. Now, I trust that all of you over a certain age have seen Star Wars. And if... No?
First on our generation.
Okay, so let me just explain. There will be spoilers in this sermon. But given that you've had since 1977 to see it, this is your problem. Now, when Star Wars came out, I was a little guy. It was probably the very first grown-up movie that my parents took me to see. And as a kid, you know, I was just enamored with Luke Skywalker and his X-Wing, going through all of the adventures that he had, blowing up the Death Star. I mean, how does it get better than that, right? I mean, he used to, you know, bullseye womp rats in his K-16 back home, but I was just amazed by it. But at the time, I had that 7-year-old's understanding, and now you're doing math. Yeah, figure it out. But I had that kid's understanding. This was just a rollicking adventure. It was scary at times when Darth Vader would come down the hallway. It was exciting at times. There was that whole thing with Princess Leia and her apparent attraction with Luke, who turns out to be her brother, and well, that's kind of just as well that one didn't go anywhere. And over the years, George Lucas released more movies. Some of them, I will say, were better than others. And when I found out that the first Star Wars that I had seen was really Episode 4, it's like, man, what's with that? But movie after movie after movie, telling the Skywalker story, 9 of them in all. And back at Christmas time this year, when my son was home from law school, he and my wife and I went and we sat down to see the 9th installment of the Star Wars saga, Rise of Skywalker. And it was interesting. It was the place where so many pieces of the story came together, where all of the archetypes that had really made the Star Wars saga so great all finally gelled. But there was something about it, spoiler alert, yeah, spoiler alert for any of you who haven't seen it yet, was that some of those original cast members were in it. Mark Hamill, playing Luke Skywalker, a bit older and wiser than he was when he was flying his X-Wing. He was there as a character that helped us touch base with the past. Harrison Ford, who had played Han Solo and who had gotten killed in the last movie, spoilers, yeah, shows up again as his spirit. So Harrison Ford's in the movie even though his character's dead. And Carrie Fisher, who had played Princess Leia, even though Carrie Fisher had passed away, was still in the movie. Princess Leia, General Organa, as she had become, was also in the movie. So we had this guy who, well, still alive, still functioning as a character and as a person. One who's still alive as a person but dead as a character, and one who is dead as a person yet alive as a character, were all together on screen for one last time. There's a lot going on in this most recent film, and you can see the archetypes as they come back. Bringing people back from the dead is a way of connecting with that deep story. It's the same thing that we see in today's reading from the Gospel, where Jesus goes up on the mountainside with his disciples, where he's met there by Moses and Elijah. Moses, who had been the one who told Pharaoh to set my people free, who had raised his staff over the Red Sea and parted the waters, who had struck the rock with that same staff and brought water in the desert. Moses, whom no one had seen die, but Exodus tells us that he had gone up to another mountaintop and looked out over the promised land, where he was able to pass away in contentment, and where God buried him somewhere in a place that was unknown. Elijah, the great prophet, the one who had raised to new life the deceased child of the widow in Nain, the one who had stood up against Ahab and Jezebel, the one who had wonderful, wonderful stories about his power and his strength working for God, the one who had gone out one day with his follower Elisha and been caught up in a fiery chariot to heaven without tasting of death. So Moses and Elijah are suddenly there with Jesus and his disciples on top of this mountain. It's these archetypes that keep coming back. The mountaintop, the place of enlightenment, the place of vision, the place where new ways of doing things are seen. And the disciples, Peter especially, sees Jesus standing there with these two greats from the Hebrew Scriptures. And being Peter, being the impetuous one, he says, "You know, Jesus, let me build some shrines here so that we can remember what's going on." Jesus gives him the look. And that's when the cloud descends. And a voice from the cloud speaks words that echo the words that came over this countryside when Jesus was baptized. "This is my Son, my beloved, in whom I am well pleased." With a little tagline, "Listen to him." And then the cloud disappears, and once it's gone, Jesus is standing there by himself. And he tells his disciples, "Shh, don't tell anyone what you've seen until the Son of Man is raised from the dead." It's a secret. This story, just like the Star Wars saga, is laden with archetypes. Joseph Campbell would have a field day with it as he took pieces and said, "Look, it's a mountain. That should tell you something. Look, it's a cloud. That should tell you something. All of these images coming together from the past. That should tell you something." And when we look at the story, we look at it in so many different layers. We start off by reading it just as story. Just as a 7-year-old, I watched Luke Skywalker with his X-Wing. Just a story. Take it for what you see. But of course, as we get older, we start to see those extra layers. We start to read the value of the story behind the events of the story behind the story, if you will. Matthew, of course, being the gospel writer who most wanted to convince the Jewish people that Jesus was the Messiah, reaches back to the sacred stories of the people and brings Moses and Elijah to the forefront, placing Jesus among them. This is the three who belong together. And then Jesus is the one that remains. But what do we do? What do we do with that shh? With that command to tell nobody what they've seen? Have any of you ever known a secret? Something that you wanted to tell people but you couldn't for one reason or another? I see Carolyn, you're nodding. You want to tell us what your secret is? That's probably just as well. You get bonus points for that. You know, we all carry things with us that we wish we could share. Sometimes they're secrets that we don't want to share. They're things that we're keeping quiet to protect someone else or out of our own sense of shame. Other times, though, the secrets are secrets of joy. I remember when my wife was pregnant, how we went through this period of wanting to tell everybody all at once, but not wanting to put the news out too soon. You know, you don't want to just start announcing it immediately. And we held off until we had our first doctor's appointment, until we had the real medical confirmation. We kept it quiet. We didn't go around telling people our secret immediately. By the way, it was a boy. I figure that's an open secret now. But we all have these secrets that we hold, sometimes for days or weeks. Other times we hold them for a lifetime. There's something we know that we cannot share. And when Jesus told his disciples, shh, keep this quiet. Don't tell anyone until after the Son of Man has been raised from the dead. He was telling them to hold this for just a season. On Wednesday, we enter that season of Lent, that 40-day period, that time when we know what's coming. We know that Easter is on the far side, but we're not there yet. It's not a story that we can tell week after week in that time of quiet and reflection. Jesus, Moses, Elijah, the three together. The secret that these three belong together. That together, the law and the prophet and God's own Son transform our lives. Can't be fully known until we experience together the power of Easter. And so on this Transfiguration Sunday, as we stand on the cusp of Lent, as we prepare to go through that lonesome valley with Jesus, as we prepare to follow all the way to the cross, through the sorrow and the fear and the disappointment, through the pain and the death, we know where this is going. We know that the Son of Man will be raised from the dead, and that in that Easter message we will find new life for ourselves. Today, though, as we get ready to begin our journey, let us pause and reflect on those heroes of our faith who have pointed us this direction, and on the good news that guides us forward as God's people. Thanks be to God, who points us down right paths. Amen.
Amen.